The philosophy of existentialism. Why you create your own meaning. Imagine waking up one day and realizing there is no grand plan for your life, no divine blueprint, no ultimate cosmic script. Just you, the choices you make, and the meaning you create. For some, this idea is terrifying. For existentialists, it's the ultimate form of freedom. Existentialism isn't about passively accepting the world, it's about shaping it. It's the philosophy that says, you are responsible for your own existence. There is no inherent meaning to life, no predetermined path, only what you decide to make of it. In this episode, we dive into existentialism, the philosophy of freedom, responsibility, and meaning-making. How did thinkers like Sartre, Nietzsche, Camus, and Kierkegaard shape this radical worldview? And in a time of uncertainty, anxiety, and endless distractions, is existentialism more relevant than ever? The core ideas of existentialism precedes essence. Most philosophies assume we are born with a predetermined purpose. Existentialists disagree. You are not given a purpose, you create it. Jean-Paul Sartre put it best. Man first exists, encounters himself, surges up in the world, and defines himself afterwards. In other words, you are not born as a hero, an artist, or a failure. You become one through your actions. Your choices define you, not fate, not society, and certainly not a divine plan. Think about it. If there's no ultimate script, then every decision you make is writing your own story. What kind of character are you becoming? Radical freedom and responsibility. With no pre-written destiny, existentialists argue that we have absolute freedom but also absolute responsibility. There is no one to blame for your choices except yourself. Søren Kierkegaard, who was one of the earliest existentialists, believed that true faith is not blind obedience, but a leap of personal conviction. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that without a higher power dictating morality, we must create our own values. He declared, God is dead. Not as an insult to religion, but as a warning. If traditional moral structures no longer hold, we must take responsibility for what we believe in. Jean-Paul Sartre called this anguish, the realization that our freedom is limitless, and therefore so is our responsibility. Simone de Beauvoir extended existentialism to gender, arguing that women were not born submissive, but conditioned to be so, the path to liberation, taking responsibility for defining oneself beyond societal expectations. If there is no cosmic judge, how do we live a meaningful life? What values do we create? The absurd and the search for meaning. Existentialists believe that life is inherently absurd, a chaotic, indifferent universe, where humans desperately seek meaning. Albert Camus famously used the myth of Sisyphus, a metaphor for human existence. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus was condemned by the gods to roll a massive boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down every time he neared the top. His punishment was eternal, his struggle endless, and his efforts ultimately meaningless, or so it seemed. For Camus, this myth wasn't just a tragic story. It was the perfect symbol for the absurdity of life. Just like Sisyphus, humans are born into a world without inherent meaning, forced to create purpose in the face of an indifferent universe. We wake up, go to work, chase ambitions, and strive for happiness, all while knowing that in the grand scheme of things, our efforts may amount to nothing. Death will erase everything we build. So why keep pushing? Camus' radical answer: revolt against the absurd. Rather than giving in to despair, he argued that we must embrace our struggle, find joy in the effort itself, and live without illusion. The moment Sisyphus accepts his fate, he is no longer a victim. He is free. He transforms his punishment into an act of defiance, proving that meaning is not something we find, but something we create. Think about it. If life has no predefined meaning, then every passion, every act of love, every creative endeavor is an act of rebellion against the absurd. Authenticity, living on your own terms. For existentialists, the worst thing you can do is live inauthentically following what society expects instead of defining life for yourself. Jean-Paul Sartre's concept of bad faith is one of the most important ideas in existentialism. It refers to the self-deception people engage in when they convince themselves that they have no choice, that their actions are dictated by external forces like society, fate, or tradition. At its core, bad faith is about denying personal responsibility. It's when a person refuses to acknowledge their freedom, and instead hides behind roles, excuses, or societal expectations. Examples of bad faith in everyday life. The unhappy worker. Imagine someone stuck in a job they hate. They complain every day but tell themselves, "I have no choice, I need to pay the bills." Sartre would argue that this person is in bad faith, not because working is bad, but because they refuse to acknowledge that they do have a choice. They could quit, change careers, or take a risk. The truth is, they fear the responsibility of making a choice, so they pretend they have none. The soldier following orders history is full of people who claimed, "I was just following orders." Sartre rejects this excuse. Every action we take is a choice, even in extreme circumstances. The soldier who participates in an unjust war but claims they had no choice is engaging in bad faith. They refuse to admit they could resist, even if the consequences are difficult. Why do people fall into bad faith? Fear of responsibility. Radical freedom is terrifying. It means we have no one to blame but ourselves for our actions. People often prefer to think their path is set for them. Societal expectations. We are raised to play certain roles: the loyal employee, the devoted spouse, the obedient citizen. Many follow these roles unquestioningly, avoiding difficult decisions. Comfort and avoidance of uncertainty. Making real choices can be painful. It's easier to stay in a situation that feels safe than to risk the unknown. Authenticity. The antidote to bad faith. Sartre argues that the only way to live authentically is to embrace our freedom. This means owning our choices, no more excuses, no more blaming circumstances, acting in alignment with our true values. Instead of blindly following expectations, we must define our own purpose, accepting the weight of responsibility. Freedom isn't easy, but it's the price of living a life that is truly our own. Sartre challenges us. Are you living in bad faith, or are you truly free? Ask yourself, are you making choices because they're yours, or because it's what others or society expect? Why existentialism matters today. We live in a time of uncertainty, anxiety, and constant change. Existentialism doesn't offer comforting answers. It forces us to confront reality. Feeling lost? Existentialism says that's okay. Meaning isn't. Found it is created. Struggling with choices? Existentialism reminds you that you always have a choice, and that's what makes life meaningful. Overwhelmed by society's expectations, existentialism asks, are you living for yourself or for others? At its core, existentialism isn't about despair, it's about empowerment. You are free, you are responsible, you define your own life. So the only question left is, Giddy, what will you make of it?